The areas that really don't matter much to the United States strategically are areas like Africa. Africa is an area that is of little strategic interest to the United States. People will sometimes say to me these days, you know, the Chinese are deeply involved in Africa. Isn't the United States worried about that? No, we're not. Why? Because Africa is of little strategic importance. Southeast Asia, really good example. During the Vietnam War, many realists argued that Southeast Asia was of little strategic importance, and therefore it made no sense to fight in Vietnam. No sense to fight in Vietnam. Virtually every realist in the United States opposed the Vietnam War because it was of no strategic importance. Vietnam was of no strategic importance to us. And they would say when the war ended and we lost the war, it didn't matter. 14 years later, we won the Cold War. Who cares whether we lost in Vietnam? Didn't matter. There are no great powers in Southeast Asia. That was our argument. No great powers in Southeast Asia, and no strategic resources that mandated us to be there. And of course, Southwest Asia, India, Pakistan, Northwest Asia, sometimes called Central Asia, and the rest of the Middle East are of little strategic importance to the United States. Syria, Egypt, and Israel are three countries that matter little to the United States for strategic reasons. They are not core strategic interests. What happens in Syria matters little to us. What happens in Egypt or in Israel matters little to us. These are countries that are not great powers and they don't have oil. So the idea that you're going to fight and die for them for strategic reasons? No. Okay, the areas that matter are Europe, Northeast Asia, and the Persian Gulf, historically. The United States was attacked at Pearl Harbor by Japan. Nevertheless, before we went to war in Europe and after we went to war in Europe, our policy was a Europe-first policy. During the Cold War, when we used to run war games, what would happen is we'd get a war going on the Central Front in Europe, and then what we would do is we would swing forces out of Asia into Europe to fight against the Soviets. Why? Because Europe was more important than Northeast Asia was. Our allies in Asia were always deeply bothered by that. They thought that the main reason that we were swinging forces from Asia to Europe was because most Americans could trace their heritage to Europe, and therefore we had a bias in favor of Europe and against Asia. That was not true at all. We were deeply concerned about Europe at the expense of Northeast Asia because Europe was strategically the most important area of the world for us. It always has been. Northeast Asia was second, and the Gulf was third. The United States is about to undergo a fundamental transformation. Asia, East Asia in particular, is going to become the most important area of the world for us. Persian Gulf is going to become the second most important area of the world for us, and Europe is going to be a distant third. This is a transformation that is taking place that most people in the United States and most people abroad have not fully grasped. You want to fully grasp this, because this is going to be of tremendous importance for the rest of your life. The United States is shifting its gun sights from Europe to Asia in a really big way. And this is really all about the rise of China. I want to make one important qualification in my overall argument so far. You remember I said, when I talked about the areas of the world that are important to the United States, second is Northeast Asia. In both Northeast Asia and Southeast Asia. Many of you have been reading about the potential conflict in the South China Sea between the United States and China. The fact that China is adjacent to the South China Sea and claims the South China Sea tells you that the United States is not just concerned about Northeast Asia now and in the future. It will be concerned with Southeast Asia as well. So what we're talking about is East Asia, the Gulf, and Europe. I want to say a few words about the Gulf and about Europe. The Gulf is terribly important to the United States because it is and is going to be important to China. You understand that China imports a huge amount of its oil, and indeed today roughly 25% of Chinese oil comes from the Gulf. And almost all predictions regarding future Chinese dependence on oil says that number will go up to 20, 25, 30%. So the Chinese care greatly about the Persian Gulf. And because the Chinese care greatly about the Persian Gulf, and by the way, the Indians care greatly about the Persian Gulf, where they also get lots of oil, you can rest assured that Uncle Sam will care greatly about the Persian Gulf. So what I'm telling you here is that when you think about American grand strategy, it's important to understand that Northeast Asia, or East Asia as I now describe it, and the Persian Gulf are linked in very important ways because the Chinese economy is so heavily dependent on imported oil from the Gulf. And Europe will be a distant third. And the reason that Europe will be a distant third is that there is no great power in Europe today, be it Germany or Russia, that threatens to dominate the entire region. So when you hear people talk about the swing strategy, they're talking about swinging forces to East Asia. But the question you want to ask yourself is, where are they swinging forces from? Those forces will be swung from Europe over time to Asia as China continues to rise, because we have no good strategic reason to maintain large-scale forces in Europe, the Ukraine crisis notwithstanding. So that's the basic grand strategic picture. And again, you want to remember, when I'm talking about the Persian Gulf, I'm not talking about the overall Middle East, although the United States has been involved in the overall Middle East.